The Showrunner is the brand new kinetic SMG that just came out with the season of the Witch. I'm only calling it new because it just got its entire perk pool redone, meaning it officially rolls with more than just one perk. This was a Destiny 2 Year 1 legendary SMG that I did not care for back then. And though the Showrunner has new and improved rolls to go with it, it almost went completely under my radar until a friend of mine told me about it. The Showrunner can roll with kinetic tremors that has a solid single target damage and has applications towards add clear ability, being an AoE shockwave of course. And though this perk doesn't really have any elemental synergy to make builds with, I would think that it can make up for that with the idea of being a kinetic weapon. For kinetic weapons can do 10% more damage intrinsically, and when it comes to weapons that can roll with kinetic tremors, I have to say that the Showrunner has to be the end-all be-all best weapon to pair with this perk. Looking at the loot pool for weapons that roll with kinetic tremors, just to name a few, we have weapons such as Hung Jury, which is inherently a great weapon, but I feel like the usage for scouts is just very niche. This would include GM Nightfalls almost exclusively, because for any content such as Master Raids, Legendary Lost Sectors, or Master Nightfalls, there are always more manageable options that come with higher DPS to them. You also have Spare Rations, which is a 140 round per minute hand cannon that can roll with additionally rapid hit to help with the reload. But with kinetic tremors taking 6 shots total to proc on a hand cannon, Spare Rations only has a base magazine size of 13. And though 140 round per minute hand cannons do shoot relatively quickly, needing to be able to shoot off half of your magazine would still be considered more on the slow side for these types of weapons. Then we have the Buzzard, which is a sidearm, and though sidearms do have the highest DPS for primaries in Destiny 2, it runs into the main issue of needing to be too close to the enemy for higher endgame content use, along with the fact that it takes 12 shots in order to proc kinetic tremors when its base magazine size is only 15. In the end of the day, other than the sidearm, I feel like we do have great and solid options that have the ability to roll with kinetic tremors. But for the short-ranged shredders that SMGs are, especially for the lightweight frame variety, I would say that the Showrunner definitely takes the cake as my favorite weapon to roll with this perk. And in terms to go neck and neck for the kinetic slot, we do have the tried and true Submission from the Vow of the Disciple raid. That has of course stood the test of time as one of the best kinetic primary weapons to use. But for this video, I won't be comparing these two directly. I'm just curious to know what you think is better. You can comment down below now or after the video of which kinetic lightweight frame SMG you think is better, Submission or the Showrunner. Do let me know. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button for me. Subscribing is free and it helps support me as a creator. You can always unsubscribe later. So going over a few godroll options that I would consider, of course we have the one and only kinetic tremors. Being on an SMG, it only takes 14 shots in order to proc the shockwaves, and with a base magazine size of 36, on top of the fact that it is a 900 rounds per minute SMG, getting to the 14 shot threshold would take you milliseconds. But that's not to say that there is an alternative option that can be used. This of course would be target lock. It's not on my 5 out of 5 godroll, specifically because kinetic tremors is available on this SMG. But the more and more time goes on, I am starting to see target lock more of a PvP type perk, unless it's on something like a machine gun. Then I would consider it to be used for PvE endgame content. But as for primary weapons, I think you can definitely live without target lock. So of course, going back to kinetic tremors, we shall now be going over the third column. Here, I see only 2 viable options for myself. The main one that I really want is Overflow, mainly for the reason that it will boost your magazine size up all the way to 72, and with running it on Submission, just knowing how good it is, it's an option that I would want when comparing it to what else is here. Another perk that I would be okay with having would be Dynamic Sway Reduction. So coming out, I am a controller player. Stability is a necessity for people like me. So to my controller players, Dynamic Sway Reduction is not a bad option at all. To my PC players, yeah, you're just limited down to 1 perk unfortunately, but regardless, Overflow is just god tier. So I recommend it across the board. mouse or keyboard or controller, whoever you are. Now going over the second column, this one was more of a tricky one to go over. So first and foremost, since we're just going to start at the top going down, I did think of alloy magazine. In PvE, to where you're able to just lay down fire all the way until your magazine's empty, then you get that increased reload speed, is a nice idea up until you see that this SMG's stats are actually miserable. So with that said, I would want a perk that actually helps me in both the stat area and the gameplay area, which, you know, also go hand in hand with each other. So going down, we also had high caliber rounds. Of course, this just makes enemies flinch beyond belief. No time to attack you. Plus it gives you 5 range, which isn't bad, but that's all it is. It's just 5 range. And now we're getting into the 2 perks that I would actually consider. One being ricochet rounds, for the fact that it gives you stability and range. There is functionality in the rounds actually ricocheting, but not enough to really make a difference out in the battlefield. So specifically just stats right there. Another one that is also specifically just stats would be flared magwell. This one helps your reload speed and your stability, which for me, I find to be way more important. A fast reload makes the weapon feel way more fluid. You feel like you can get right back into the fight, or that you're not taken out of the fight too often, on top of the fact that it gives you stability as well, which just makes the weapon feel overall just better. Now going over to the barrel perks, of course, every time I list this barrel, someone is always arguing with me, but it is of course fluted barrel yet again. I like the idea of handling. I know this weapon doesn't really need much handling added to it, but it gives you additional stability as well. So it's a 2-for-1 right there. That's the only reason why I took it. You can go with polygon rifling, it just gives you a flat 10 stability. And since I'm a controller player, I mean, stability is just always nice to have. I would rather just take the fluted barrel. Now the masterwork, we're going with stability. Just because, again, controller player here, I need it. Okay, I need it. I am gonna acknowledge the range here though, and how abysmal it is. The range is in the gutter, but we have something to help us there, believe it or not. That will be within our origin traits, which is the next part to talk about. The Showrunner has the option to run 2 origin traits of your choosing. Either the Vanguard's Vindication, which grants you a small amount of health per enemy defeated, or Nadir Focus, which states that by laying down sustained fire, you will gain increased accuracy and range. Now I have scoured the internet for answers on how much range specifically is granted just by laying down sustained fire, but I could not get an answer. But if you know, please comment it below and I will pin your comment to help let others know as well. But for the origin trait of Nadir Focus, this could help with the fact that the SMG does lack in range quite substantially. And if you're more of a PvP player, Nadir Focus paired with dynamic sway reduction and target lock is probably the most automated weapon you will ever see inside Destiny 2. Not claiming that I know what's best for PvP because I do not play it, but the idea to lay down the trigger and have accuracy, stability, range, and damage all increase in stats seems pretty busted to me. But again, I am no PvP expert. Now for me, if you could like this video if you have enjoyed it, or dislike it if you hated it, that would be much appreciated. And definitely subscribe, it helps me out more than you know. Take care and peace.